Hello guys, good morning. Welcome to the session today. Hope you all can hear me. Can you guys confirm once? Okay, great. So thanks for confirming. So let us start the session. If you guys remember, yesterday we have said what is Google Cloud locations. So let us just recap. So GCP has total 5 locations. The 5 locations are divided into regions. The regions are further divided into zones. And if you can see here, the locations are like North America, the South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. And you can able to see here. So GCP is organized into regions and zones. Each region is a collection of zones. So if I take a one location, I'll be having multiple regions. In each region, we will be having multiple zones. Each zone is connected to the one more zone via high bandwidth network. Zones are having the resources, so that's the reason zones are also called as the sometimes availability zones and deployment area. A region is nothing but an independent geographic area in a location. A zone is a deployment area in a region. So the selection criteria, whenever deploying the resources in GCP, it is important for us to consider the proximity of the region or zone to your target users or the customers. And to avoid the unexpected failures, try to deploy the resources across multiple zones or regions in a zone. Okay. The third point is that it is important for us to understand the pricing and availability of the resources because it may vary from region to region or zone to zone. Okay, so this is what we have seen yesterday. We are going to start with IM and admin from today onwards, guys. Okay, yeah. 1 minute. Okay. So, for example, we are going to start with IM and admin. For example, if you wanted to take care of the access control, if you are working on a project, there are multiple engineers are working on it. Take a project, for example. Let me see here. So, in this project, there are like multiple developers are working on it. Developer one, developer two, and developer three. Multiple developers are working on it, and we need to provide the access to the Google Cloud Platform services, GCP resources. We need to provide the access. Okay, so to provide the access and to take care of the access control within the Google Cloud Platform, we have IM and admin. Okay, so to take care of the entire access control for your projects or the resources or anything in the Google Cloud platform, we need to straight away go to the IAM and admin. So IAM is nothing but a identity access management where access control will be managed with help of the IAM and admin only. Okay, so whenever you are working on any project, we need to take care of the IAM and access control. Let me gonna show you here. IAM stands for Identity Access Management. I means identity, A means access, M means management. So with the help of the IAM, you can easily manage the access control by defining who has what type of an access for which resource. In a simple words, IAM talks about the authorization. Okay, so it defines who can do what on which resource. Who can do what on which resource. So IAM is nothing but identity and access management. With the help of the IAM, we can manage the access control by defining who has a what type of an access for which resource, which says who can do what on which resource. Okay, it talks about the authorization, guys. So when you are working on a project or when multiple developers working on a project, we need to provide the access to those developers so that the developers can do the development activities, right? So if they wanted to develop some implement some activities such as creating a data set, tables, all of those things, or creating a cluster, all of those things, if they wanted to do all of those development activities, they need to have access to the GCP. Okay, by default, you don't get an access to any of the service in the GCP. You need to provide the access. The admin has to provide the access to you so that you will be able to work on these services. So tomorrow, you see here, yes, that's what I told you. So for example, you are the person. You joined in a company and they tag it to the GCP project. And in that project, they are actually working on the data prog, data flow, BigQuery, and cloud storage. Assume that they are working on these services. Okay, in that particular project, they are working on these services. So when you are tagged to this project, by default, you have a zero access to those services. By default, you have a zero access to those services. What the admin will do is that the admin will go to the IAM and provide the access to you for all of these services. So that is where you will be getting an access to work with the data prog, data flow, BigQuery, and GCS. So this is the reason if you wanted to take care of the access control in the GCP, we need to go to the IAM and admin. So that is the main important aspect here, sir. So with the help of the IAM, how do we take care of the access control? How do we provide the access to the developers? How do we provide the access to the service accounts? Let us try to understand. Okay, so we now know that the context is that with the help of the IAM, we can manage the access control. That is what is our topic today. But how to take care of the access control with the help of the IAM, let us try to understand now. Okay, so now first in IAM, I stands for identities or principles. So in IAM, I stands for identities or principles. You can think of anything. Identities or principles. An identity can be a service account or a user account or a group of accounts. An identity can be a user account or a service account or a group of accounts. For example, so identities are principles. In IAM, I stands for identities or principles. An identity can be a user account. Okay, an identity can be a user account. What is meant by user account, sir? The account which you are trying to log into your Google Cloud platform is your user account. It is a human account. It is a human account. The account you are trying to log into your Google Cloud platform is nothing but a human account, right? So it's a Google account. So account that you are trying to log in. So that is what is a user account. The second one is an identity can be a user account or a service account. It can also be a service account also. A service account is more of a authorization purpose, or it is an account of an application. It is an inhuman account. It is not a human account, sir. It is an inhuman account. It is not a human account. It is an account of service or application. It is an account of a service or an application. Okay, so it is not a human account, it is an account of some service. It is an account of some application. Okay, so it is an account of some service or some application. So why it is required? So in our upcoming sessions, we will try to understand it more better. But to provide some idea, the service accounts are to provide the access to those resources. Okay, so service accounts are very useful whenever you wanted to interact two services programmatically. Okay, if you wanted to provide the access programmatically, you can use the service accounts. Okay, sorry. To provide the authentication to the services programmatically. So this is what it is, sir. What is a service account? If you ask me, it is an inhuman account. It is an account of a service or an application. Why they are used, if you ask me? So to provide the authentication to the services programmatically. For example, if I have to say in a simple words, if I have to say, for example, you are running a pipeline. Okay, you are running a pipeline. It moves the data from the service 1 to the service 2. It moves the data from the service 1 to the service 2. Okay, so assume that we have a service 1, here we have a service 2, here we wanted to move the data from the service 1 to the service 2. Okay, whenever you wanted to do that, you need the authorization to do this activity because this is a pipeline. Okay, you are not doing it manually. So when you do it manually, your account is used. When you do it manually, this particular service will need your account permissions to do that. But when you are actually running a pipeline, what happens here is that, so the pipeline does not have an access to use this particular service 1 and service 2, move the data from the service 1 to service 2. The pipeline does not have any access. In that scenario, you can use the service account. You can create a service account. You can provide the access to the service account for the service 1 and service 2, so that this service account already having access to the service 1 and service 2, so that it provides the authorization to do that activity. Okay, so this is one scenario. And one more scenario is that, for example, you have a BigQuery. Okay, so you have an external application called Power BI. You have a Power BI here. So if you wanted to visualize the data in the Power BI, if you wanted to visualize the data in the Power BI, we need the data. The data is available in the BigQuery. So assume that you have the data in the BigQuery, you wanted to extract the data from the BigQuery and try to visualize the data in the Power BI. But Power BI does not have any access to use the BigQuery. Yes or no? Power BI by default, because this is a different team. It is a BI team. Here it is a data engineers team. Okay, they can't use their own account because they does not have a BigQuery account at all. They do not have a Google Cloud account at all. Okay, they just wanted to extract the data from the BigQuery. Okay, if they wanted to extract the data from the BigQuery, they need to have the access to that BigQuery. But access is not provided to them. And one more thing is that they wanted to extract the data every day on a daily basis with some pipeline. Okay, in such a scenario also we can use service accounts to work with external applications. So the service accounts are very useful to provide the access programmatically to the services, whether it is internal services or external services. Here, the Power BI, whenever it is extracting the data, it will use the service account. And now, while you are creating the service account, you provide the access to the BigQuery, so that whenever the Power BI needs an access, they go by a service account, so that the BigQuery will provide the data. Then the Power BI can able to have the data. Okay, so this is how there are multiple scenarios are there where we will be using the service accounts for the authorization purpose. So in our upcoming sessions, we will know more better, but try to understand it that the service accounts are very useful. You can see here. So it is a service account, which is an account of a service and application to authenticate and interact with the GCP resources programmatically. So if you wanted to interact with the GCP resources programmatically, we can use the service accounts. Okay, so that is okay. Sorry, what is the question? Okay, that's what I'm telling you. The service account. The Power BI can easily connect it to the BigQuery. Who said the many projects they have used the Power BI with BigQuery? So they will connect it via service. That's what I told you. Okay. Yeah. So even the Power BI does not have a direct access to the ADF. Okay. It will not have. If you have a direct access to the ADF, why can't you get the data from other ADF projects? So there are multiple ADFs, right? So you are in your team, you may be having the ADF, but assume that there is a one more team who is also having the ADF. Can you get the data of their ADF? That's what I'm telling you, right? No, no. You have the BigQuery as a data source as well. You can check it out. You have a BigQuery as a data source. So that's what I'm telling you. Power BI will have a multiple data sources. You just go and click on the Power BI, you'll be able to see that icon as well. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now look at here, guys. So we are talking about the identities and services, right? Look at here. For example, so if I wanted to understand the IAM, I stands for identities and principles. An identity can be a user account. And the user account is nothing but a human account or a Google account. Every day we are trying to log into the Google Cloud platform, right? That account I'm calling as a user account. A service account is nothing but a inhuman account. It is an account of a one application, or it is an account of one service to provide the authorization to the services programmatically. So, for example, assume that I wanted to create one service account. So I am here now. So I just wanted to create one service account. So for example, I will go to IAM and admin. Look at here, we have a IAM and admin, click on it. So we have here IAM and admin. So what I will do, so on the left side, you will be having plenty of these things. You can see here service account. So click on this service account. So user accounts, we don't need to create it because the user accounts are nothing but the emails only. Okay, so this is my email, sir. So which I am trying to log into. So that is your user account. Now, if you wanted to create a service account, you come to the service account section. You click on create service account. You provide the service account. So this service account, I wanted to provide the access to the Power BI. So I would say Power BI EXT service account. This is the external service account. So I have mentioned here Power BI external service account. Okay, I just wanted to create a service account. I'm just showing you guys. Click and create and continue. Okay, so this service account needs to have a access to some of the services in this particular project. What are those services? Sir, I wanted to provide the access to the BigQuery because they need the access to the BigQuery only. So the data viewer. So I'm providing the BigQuery data viewer so that whoever is accessing this particular service account, they have a authorization to use the BigQuery data view. So they can able to view the data in the BigQuery. So you click on continue and then you click on done so that the service accounts gets created. See here. So they will use the service account, and you can also generate a key so that they will start using the service account to extract the data from the BigQuery, because now the service account also have the access to the BigQuery. So this way, so what you do while you're creating the service account itself, you provide the access to the BigQuery. Okay, now this service account have an access to the BigQuery. So when the Power BI external service is accessing the BigQuery, so they can use this service account for the authorization purpose. So this is one way of using that. So an identity can be a user account or a service account. Sometimes what happens is that it can also be a group of accounts. A group of accounts. A service account can also be a group of accounts. A group of accounts. A group of accounts is nothing but a, for example, in your team, you have a multiple developers working on it. Developer 1, developer 2, developer 3. So when a multiple developers are working on a project, when multiple developers are working on a project, okay, when multiple developers are working on a project, we need the same access, right? So for example, they're all working on a similar project, right? So the same project, that means they are working on the same set of services, data proc or data flow or virtual machines or cloud storage or whatever it is. So they are working on same set of services in the project, and we don't want it to provide the access individually to each and every service to the each and every developer. In such scenario, you can create them as a group. You can create them as a group 1, and you provide the access to them to the group directly, so that individually we don't need to provide them the access. What we can do is that we can just provide the access to the one group itself, so that when we provide the access to the group, automatically all the developers get the same access. Okay, so this is what is one more thing. Okay, where is a group of accounts will be there. This is what we call as a group. A group is nothing but a group of accounts. Okay, so that individually we don't need to provide the access to the developers. We can directly create that as a group, create them as a group, and provide the access to the group directly, so that whenever there is a new access also required, we provide the access to the group, so that all the developers will get the same and similar access to the services. So that is the reason sometimes most of the companies will follow the group of accounts. They will try to create a group and they provide the access to the group. Okay, so this is what we call as a the third thing, that is group of accounts. An identity can be a user account or a service account or a group of accounts. Okay, so that is what I told you. In IAM, I stands for identities or principles. An identity can be a user account or a service account or a group of accounts. Okay, any question here, guys? Anyone? Please raise your hand if you guys have any questions. So these are the basic knowledge for everyone, guys. So these are the cloud basics for everyone is much required. So, but throughout the period, you may be getting a chance to work on it, or you need to know what kind of an access you required whenever you are working on some service, right? So when you're working on a senior data engineer, you should know what kind of an access is required for you to provide the access. Or sometimes what happens when you are working on a POC projects, you wanted to provide the access. Okay, in such scenario, this knowledge is very much enough. Okay. It's not for the services, right? The group is not for the services. IAM is nothing but identities, right? Identities. Identities is nothing but a kind of a account. Okay, so you are creating that as a for accounts. It's not for the services. Okay. Yeah, you have a set of developers or set of service accounts. For those, you are creating that as a group. Okay, it's not for the a group is not for the services. It's for the persons. You can say. Yeah. Any other questions, anyone? Sorry, all of these things. So this is an admin activity, but when you are working on a POC project, you will be working on all of these things as well. Okay, so because everything does not, when it is a streamlined project, there will be admin to you. But when you are starting a project and you wanted to work on the project, and at early stages you need to know all of these things, you should providing all of these accesses for sure. Okay, yeah. So that is what, guys, everything whatever I'm telling you, even in the GCP locations or GCP interacting methods. Okay, so you need to know all of these things, because I'll tell you why. Admin, you may be thinking that, sir, admin will take care of it. No, what happens is that when it is a streamlined, so assume that you are starting a new project. It is a new project. So you have a client. Okay, for the new project, there won't be any DevOps engineer, there won't be any admin, there won't be any proper anyone. No one will be there, because you are just there is a one new project is getting started. When the new project is getting started, when you are interacting with the client, you need to know the requirements of the client. You need to create the proof of concept, nothing but a POC, and once it is successful, then you will be creating a new team. That's where your new team will come into the picture. That team will have DevOps engineer or admin or anyone, and multiple developers will be there. But if you wanted to successfully complete your POC, nothing but a proof of concept as per the requirement, you should be as a senior developer, and as a senior developer you should be having all the knowledge. So it's not because you are not the junior developer, you are a senior developer or a senior data engineer. You should be having a in and out knowledge on the admin activities, IAM, locations, interface methods, everything, because you should be working on the entire activity. Otherwise, you cannot be able to complete the POC. Okay, everything is required here. Yeah. Okay. Yes, first. No, we will see. We just started. We just started. We will see. Okay. Yeah. So we now know IAM is nothing but a authorization where we can take care of the access control. In IAM, I stands for the identities and principles. We are in a process of learning how to provide the access control or how to take care of the access control. Okay, the definition point of view, IAM is nothing but identity access management, where we can take care of the access control. But how do we use the IAM to provide the access control? We are in that process of learning. In that process of learning, we started with I nothing but identities and principles. Now we know I is nothing but a user account or a service account or a group of accounts. Now let us focus on A. What is A in IAM? Can you guys tell me what is mean by A in IAM? What denotes A? Access. Access. In every cloud platform or in every company, the access is done via roles. Okay, so access is done via roles. So even though, for example, when you are joining in a company, they will assign you a role, whether you are a senior data engineer, whether you are a DevOps engineer or a solution architect or whatever you are. So they will assign a role, so that based on the role, you get the benefits in the company. Similarly, in IAM, A stands for access. Access is done via roles. Okay, so what is a role? A role is nothing but a set of permissions that determine what action and identity can perform on the GCP resources. A role is nothing but a set of permissions, sir. Okay, a set of permissions that determine what action and identity can perform on the GCP resources. Okay, a role is a collection of permissions. For example, look at here. So this is a role. We have a permission 1, permission 2, permission 3. Okay, so this is what we call as a role. A role is a set of permissions. It determine what these identities, if I assign them to the identities. If I assign this role to the identities, so what permissions they are getting? For example, if I assign them BigQuery admin role, BQ admin role. So BQ admin role, that means an admin role is nothing but a set of permissions. That means he can view the data, he can modify the data, he can edit the data, he can list out the data sets, he can list out the tables. All of those things are nothing but a permissions. And a role is nothing but a set of permissions which determine what an identity can perform on the GCP resources. For example, let me go and show you what are the roles. So in IAM, you can also go to the roles. You have a roles section here. So you can click on this roles. You can see here, a role is a group of permissions. You can assign it to the principals. Okay, so a role is a set of permissions. We can assign it to the principals or identities, right? So for example, these are all roles only. These are all roles only, guys. You can create your own role also. Let me gonna show you one of the role, BigQuery data editor role. So this is one of the roles, sir. BigQuery data editor is one of the role. Sir, a role is a set of permissions. You said, can you show me the set of permissions for this role, sir? When you click on that, you will be able to see set of permissions here. So a role, this particular role is a collection of permissions. That means if I assign this particular BigQuery data editor role to one of the principal, he will be getting 37 permissions assigned. So 37 permissions assigned, that means he can able to create the data set. Editor role, right? He can able to create the data set, get the data set, get the IAM policy, update the tags, create the models, create the tables, create the data sets, tables, models, routines. So all of these things he can able to do. So this is what is nothing but a role. A role is a group of permissions that we can assign it to the principals. BigQuery data editor is a one of the role which is a collection of 37 permissions. So when you assign this role to the user, what happens is that these 37 permissions are assigned to that particular user. How many permissions are 37 permissions are assigned to that particular user, so that from now on, so a permission, what it is a permission is saying, can you guys tell me what is this permission is saying now? So for example, this one, can you guys tell me what is this permission is saying? What is actually a permission? Okay, so what is mean by permission? Let's not worry about BigQuery datasets.create. What is mean by permission, guys, as per you? An action allowed, right? Some action allowed. A permission is nothing but some action allowed, right? So you wanted to do some action. If you have a permission, you will be able to do that. If you do not have a permission, you cannot be able to do that. So a permission is denotes an action allowed, right? So here BigQuery dot datasets dot create is a one of the permission. By looking at the permission, you will be able to see that that guy can create the dataset in the BigQuery. If I assign it to the user, that guy can create the data set in the BigQuery. So that permission is allowed. That action is allowed. Creating a data set in a BigQuery action is allowed for him. So such kind of a permissions are 37 here. 37 permissions are allowed, so that whenever I assign to him, not only that, you have a plenty of roles here. Okay, you have a, if you go to the cloud storage or you go to the data proc, so you have a data proc editor. So this is also one of the role. Total 61 permissions are there for the data proc editor role. Okay, if I assign it to him, that guy can able to have this many permissions allowed. Okay, so this is what is the role, sir. A role is a set of permissions. A role is a set of permissions that determine. Now tell me, sir, what the role is determining, what the role conveys to us. If it is assigned to the identity and it is telling you what actions he is allowed to do that. Right? So a role is a set of permissions that determine what action an identity can perform on the GCP resources. Okay, so when I say a role, it is a collection of permission 1, permission 2, permission 3. It can have any number of permissions. So a role will be assigned to the identities. A role will be assigned to the identities so that they can work on the actions allowed on that particular resources. So it will tell you the actions allowed. So as per permissions. Okay, so that is what an identity can do some actions based on some permissions as well. So this is what is nothing but a role, sir. Okay, you can also see a role is a collection of permissions. Okay, for example, let me take one of the role, that is in compute instance admin is a one of the role. So a role is a set of permissions, permission 1, permission 2, permission 3, permission 4, permission 5, permission 6. Okay, so compute instances dot delete dot get dot list dot stop dot start. So all of these things are permissions. Can we assign a permission to the user directly? Okay, can we assign a permission to the user directly? Right, sir, I have only one permission. I wanted to assign it to the user directly. Can we do that? No. In Google Cloud Platform, this is not possible. You can't grant a permission to the user directly. Instead, you create that as a group. Sorry, you create that as a role. You assign the role to the user. Even though you have one permission also, even though you have a one permission also, you create that as the role and you assign the role to the users. Okay, so you cannot grant a permission to the user directly. Instead, you grant them a role. When you grant them a role, so when is role is granted to them, all the permissions are granted to the user. In another words, okay, when you grant a role to the user, you grant them all the permissions that the role contains. So that is what is how the role works. You can't grant a permission to the user directly. Okay, in a simple words, you can also see here, sir, I have a role. For example, a typical role, which is a collection of permissions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each permission conveys access allowed on some resources or an action allowed on some resources. We are assigning the role to the user or group of users or the service accounts. Okay, so this is how it is. The roles are to assigned to the users or assigned to the principals. Okay, a role is a collection of permissions to provide the access to the users or principals. Okay, so this is how it works, guys. Any question on the role? Now we will see the types of roles. Okay, there are three types of roles are there. One is basic roles, predefined roles, and the custom roles. So let us try to understand each and every category one by one. So types of roles, guys. The very first thing is basic role. Okay, what is a basic role? So basic roles are nothing but a fundamental roles. Fundamental roles. Also called as a generic roles. Okay. Not specific to any service. Okay, applicable to, not specific to the any service, applicable, I would say applicable to all the services, guys. It is applicable to all the services. That means it is not specific to one service, not specific to one service, guys. It is these roles are applicable to all the services. Okay, so this is what it is. A basic role is a fundamental role, is also a generic role. It is applicable to the all the services in the GCP. The examples are basic editor role, basic viewer role, basic owner role. Okay, the name itself it is saying the basic editor role, basic viewer role, basic owner role. Okay, so what is the thing is that let me gonna ask you one thing. So, sir, I have a user here. So I provided him the basic editor role. I provided him the basic editor role to him. I assigned him the basic editor role. Can you tell me how many services he will be having an access? How many services he will be having an access? Can you guys tell me? All the services. So that is what is the danger. That means you see here, he will be having an access to all the services. So the basic roles are the dangerous roles, we will say, because assume that this guy is only working on one project. He is supposed to work on BigQuery or Dataproc. So these two services only he is supposed to work on. But we provided him the WhatsApp. We provided him the basic editor role. He is not only having an access to work on the BigQuery data proc, he also have an access to some other services like data flow, airflow, composer, data fusion, plenty other services as well. So which leads to the misuse of the service, misuse of the resources, misuse of the data leakage problems. Plenty of the problems will come into the picture. So that is the reason it is called as a dangerous roles also. I usually call it as a dangerous role. Okay, it's because basic editor role are not specific to any service. Basic editor roles are applicable to all the services. It is not specific to any service. So when you assign a basic editor role to the user, they will be having an access to all the services. They're supposed to have an access to one or two, but they have an access to all the services, which leads to the data misuse. Or they are going to misuse the access. Okay, which leads to plenty of serious problems also. So that is the reason we more 99.99% we never use the basic roles. Okay, so this is what is a basic role, sir. It is a fundamental role, generic roles applicable to all the services, not specific to any services. Basic roles are like editor role, viewer role, or owner role. These are the three things out there. Okay, so these are the basic roles. Now tell me guys, if I wanted to tackle this issue, what kind of a roles we need? We need those roles which are specific to some service, right? So that's where we have predefined roles came into the picture. The second role type is that predefined roles. Predefined roles. Predefined roles are granular roles specific to the service. These are specific to the service. So there are plenty of roles are there. More than 1500 roles are already defined by the Google Cloud Platform. More than 1500 plus roles are already defined. So that is the reason you call it as a predefined. Already defined by the Google Cloud Platform. So you can see here, predefined roles are granular roles. Predefined roles are granular roles specific to the service. More than 1500 roles are already defined. Okay, so that is the reason you call them as a predefined roles. Now tell me guys, now I have a user. I wanted to assign one of the predefined role I have just shown you, if you guys remember or not. BigQuery data viewer is a one of the predefined role. Sir, if I provide the access to if I assign this role, BigQuery data editor role to one of the user, can you tell me how many resources he will be having an access to that, sir? How many services he will be having an access to that if I provide a BigQuery data viewer or editor role? How many services he will be having an access to the Google Cloud Platform? How many services, guys? I want all of you guys to give me the answer, guys. Try to only one. Perfect. Most of that it is only one. That one is nothing but BigQuery only. Right? So so that is mute yourself, guys, please. So that is how when you provide a predefined role to one of the user, the predefined roles are specific to the one service only. Specific to the one service only. So if you assign a BigQuery data viewer or editor to one of the guy, he will only be having an access to the BigQuery. He does not have an access to any other service. Okay, so this way, for example, earlier we wanted to work on this guy is working on Dataproc and BigQuery. What we will do, sir, now? What we will do, sir, now? He needs an access for both of these things. What do we do now? Correct. We need to add one more, right? So we can add one more. So that means Dataproc. I already shown you this one also, if you guys remember, Dataproc editor, right? So that this guy now onwards will be having an access BigQuery plus Dataproc. Okay, so this way you can able to manage the access to each and every individual. Okay, so one more role is nothing, sorry, one more second type of a role is predefined role, nothing but a granular role specific to the service. More than 1500 plus roles are already defined, so that's the reason we call it as a predefined role. Tell me, guys, who defining the predefined roles? Who defined the predefined roles? Who created it? GCP is already created. Who created the basic roles? Again, GCP. So these are already available. You can think of like a ready-made roles, right? So these are already available so that we are making use of them. Basic roles as well as predefined roles are already defined by the Google Cloud Platform itself. These are like ready-made roles are already defined by the GCP. Okay, we are just making use of it. I haven't created the BigQuery data viewer role. It is already there. Okay, so this is how it is. So you have a BigQuery data viewer and Dataproc editor. We will be providing you access. Now, sometimes what happens is that we wanted to create our own role. Sir, I have a typical project requirement is there that I wanted to create my own role. In that case, we can go for what, sir? We can go for custom roles. So a custom role is a further granular role, I would say, or you can also call it as a further or normal granular role. Also, you can call it a granular role. So these are as per your customer requirement. Okay, specific to service, specific to service or services. Sometimes I usually mention it as a requirement, sir. Okay, I would say as per the requirement. It is specific to your requirement. Sir, I have a typical project requirement in my company that I couldn't able to find the role for that in the basic roles. I couldn't able to find the role in the predefined roles. So I wanted to create my own role, sir. In that case, you can go to the custom roles. In that case, you can go to the custom roles. Custom roles are specific to the service or services or requirements. I would say it is mainly based on your requirement. Okay, now, sir, what you wanted, sir, earlier you wanted to have a one user. You wanted to provide him the access to the data proc and data flow. Sorry, data proc and BigQuery. You can't find a role which suits the access for both of them at once. Okay, you can divide them for the big data proc one role, for the BigQuery one role. But sir, I wanted to create a one single role which will be having an access to both of them. In such a scenario, you can go and create your own custom role. You can create your own custom role. So my project requirement is that, and from now on, I have like 5 to 6 developers are there. Maybe in the future also, I may be having for few more developers. I wanted to create my own role, the custom role, which will be defining a granular access to the services. Okay, granular access to the services for the data proc and data flow. Okay, in that case, you can create one single role itself for both of these services. Maybe for other also, GCS also. I just wanted to create a one role that can be done using the custom roles. From now on, this guy will all be having data proc, BigQuery, GCS, and specific access only provided. Specific access means, so when I provide a BigQuery data viewer, he maybe have an access to delete the data sets also. But now, while I'm creating the custom role, I will remove the delete permission to all of these services, because we don't want any of the developers to delete anything. We never provide the permissions to do that. So such a kind of a access and permission level also you can able to take care of the custom role. Let me gonna show you how to create it. Custom roles are further granular roles specific to the requirements. So let me gonna show you how to create it. So you go to the Google Cloud Platform, sir. I wanted to create my own role. You can see here, create role. So you click on create role. You click on create role. So you provide a name for your custom role, sir. You would say custom role. Okay, custom role. BQ data proc GCS. Okay, this custom role we are working on a project where we are using the query data proc GCS. And we wanted to provide the access to, we wanted to create a one single role. The role name you are providing it as a custom role, BQDP GCS. This is my custom role, and the role name is this one, sir. And we need to assign a permissions, you see here. So when you are creating a role is nothing but a set of permissions. So far no permissions are assigned, so you click on add permissions and you provide the permissions here. So if you wanted to filter the permissions, uh, for example, so there are plenty of permissions are there. So for example, service wise we will go. So service wise, so BigQuery. So for BigQuery, so BigQuery, so you will be having a list. Sorry. So list of permissions if you wanted to. So service wise, I'm selecting the service BigQuery. So you look at here, guys. So all of these things are permissions. 110 permissions are there in the BigQuery. So you can select the permissions. You want this permission? Yes, I want this one. 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 You click on add those permissions. So BigQuery related permissions we have added. Similarly, click on add permissions. I want the data proc related. Data proc. So data proc, you select the data proc and you assign a permission. Sir, I want this one. You select whichever you want. If you don't select which you don't want. Okay, so I want these things. You click on add. Okay, so total 14. Again for the GCS also. Cloud storage. Cloud storage is not there. Why it is not there? Some name will be there, guys. I think we may have to check it. Storage, yeah. So you will be able to see here storage. So buckets, operations, all of these things. So click on all of those permissions. So total, so we are creating one single role with the permissions required for my developers to work on the data proc, Google Cloud Storage, as well as BigQuery. Whatever the entire permissions required for my developers to work on these three services, I am creating it as a one single role. Now, so you can give a proper name also. I am creating it as a single role for my project called Takeon. So Takeon GCP. This is a proper name I have given. Okay. So for the developers. Okay. So this is a proper name I have given. I have assigned all the permissions. You see here added permissions are here. You click on create. You click on create, so that you have created your own custom role, so that you don't need to assign them the three roles for three services. You created that as a single role itself. So what you have done is that this role, if you click on it, this is a custom role, you can see. So this is a custom role, sir. So this custom role is having 21 permissions here assigned. So this is how you can create your own role also. Okay. So these are the three types of roles that we have, sir. One is basic roles, nothing but a fundamental or generic roles applicable to all the services. The examples are editor role, viewer role, owner role. Predefined roles are granular roles specific to some service. More than 1500 roles are already defined. I shown you, right? So I've shown you. These are all predefined roles only. You have 1600 and plus roles are already there. So these are all predefined roles only. Okay, wherever you see. If it is a custom role, that is nothing but a custom tag will be there here. Okay, or of these are the predefined roles. Okay, sorry. Again, we are seeing the custom roles. So if you wanted to create own role according to your project requirement, in that case, you can go for the custom roles. So these are the further granular roles specific to the requirements. Okay, specific to the requirements. So this is how we have a custom roles also, sir. Okay. Yeah. So this is it, guys, for today. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me. Tomorrow, I will talk about what is a policy. Okay, we will talk about what is a policy, and we will see also the resource hierarchy. Okay, so these two things we will see tomorrow. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me, guys. Guys, please if you have any questions. Yes, yes, wait a minute. Please raise your hand if you wanted to ask any questions. Okay. So I just wanted to know who is, sir, yeah, Nang has some, I'm not sure how to call that. So yeah, you can ask. Yeah, yeah. Correct. Yes, that can be possible. See, for example, these are the roles that we are talking about. For example, sir, I wanted to take care of the sensitive data. So in a sensitive data, we don't actually take it as a role level. We will be taking it as a data level. Okay, for example, assume that I have my customer table is there where the customer phone number is also there, which we don't wanted to show it to anyone. So this is what we call as a sensitive data. So we don't take that as a role level, because role level we cannot be able to take care of it. So this can be take care of a data level. So when you wanted to take care of a data level, you can mask it. Okay, you can take care of a mask it, or you don't want, you create that as a view so that that particular column does not comes into whenever someone is accessing it. Okay, or you can mask it, or you don't want it to show the column itself, or you can create a policy tag on top of it. Okay, so there are multiple layers we can able to take care of a sensitive level. So you can create a policy tag so that no one will be able to access it. Only the authorized people will be able to see that. Or you can mask it. For example, phone number is there. So you have a 10 digits. All the 10 digits are first four digits. You will mention it as a phone number, and last phone number you can mention it as a star, 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 something like that. And a view, while you're creating a view, you can just leave that column, and all other columns you can specify. So these three ways we can able to take care of. Yes. Yes, San B. Yes. Yes. It's the same, guys. The cloud basics are everywhere same. Locations, interfaces, as well as IAM and admin, everywhere it works the same way. Okay? Yeah. Yes. Any other questions, anyone? Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, so this is it for today, guys. So far what we have seen, just let me just tell you, and we will close it. So we started with IAM and admin, and we have just seen identities. What is meant by identities? What is access? So in access, we are doing it a roles, and we have seen the three types of roles. Here in the access, we have a service account, we have a user account, we have a group of accounts. So this is what we have seen. In tomorrow's concept is nothing but management. So that management, we are going to use it with help of the policy and resource hierarchy. So that we will see tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Faraz Khan. This group can be created by admin. Yes. Okay. Correct. Yes, it is there here. If you wanted to see it, if you can go here, you will be having groups. Yeah, here you have the groups. Page is not visible to us. It's because it's an organization level product. It's an organization level entity. So that's the reason we cannot be able to see it. But usually, if you're working, let me see if I have an access to any of my project. Okay, I think so. This is usually not covered in the trial account. Okay, so this is not comes up in the trial account. But here you will be able to see create group, and you just click on create group, and you add the members accounts. That's it. So that's how it works. Correct. We can assign. We can, if you wanted to assign that, I will tell you how do we assign the access tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Okay, guys. This is it for today, and we'll see tomorrow. Few more things. Okay. Yeah. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye bye. Bye. Thank you, guys.